Empower Youth Week Masterclass. Be inspired, be connected, be transformed.
Hi, my name is Sazini Mojapelo, and I'm here today to talk to you about what I do and how I got there and how you could possibly join my profession. So thank you to the organizers for this. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a bit about myself, my life, and my career. So having introduced myself, in terms of your starting point, if you want to take the journey that I have been on, for me, it's really understanding why you do what you do. So to take us there, I will start by talking about who I am and how I landed here. So as a social impact investment specialist, in other terms, they call me a corporate social investment professional, or they call me a development specialist. But in all of that, you can hear that it speaks directly to helping people and building better communities and making a difference in people's lives. So if you look at what I've put and projected, one of the first things very early on I can remember when I was 16 years old, and I was walking with my mom, who was a single parent. I asked myself the question why she was struggling and others were not. Why the roads, who decides which school I go to, what kind of work other people do, and how generally people's lives are different. And it is at that point for me where the journey began. So when you look at this slide, you will see the fundamental question that's there is, how do you know what to do in life? That was the same question I was faced with when I was 16. But what inspired me was my mother, a very simple inspiration. She was a single parent, really struggling, and I wanted to understand why. Why is it that she's struggling and other mothers are not, other families are not? Why am I in the background that I'm in, which was quite poor, and other people are rich? Who decides? How do they decide? And what can I do to make the difference? It is at that point that those questions bugged me, and I wanted to understand who makes those decisions, how do they do them, what do they do, and how does my journey determine that? And it is from that passion point that my career or my progression in life just started. So I can easily say with much confidence that my purpose in life is really to empower and unlock people's potential. It is at that point that my journey began, and I could easily start understanding why I exist, what my purpose will be, how I will do that, and what. So my journey unfolds at that point. But I describe a picture which most of you or some of you are familiar with. Social problems that we see around us. This picture that you see in this slide really is the charge that I have for my life and for my career. So if I say that I'm a corporate social investment professional, if I say I do social impact investment, if I say I do development work, all of those things are done to support and to change the lives of the picture you see here. Be it access to water, education, good education, women's rights, gender equality, or even housing and how we live. Why do other people live in shacks and other people live in good neighborhoods, high-rise or not? How do we make the difference? And most importantly, my main question, who decides? How do they decide? What empowers them to do that? It is at that point that my journey and what I have taken on and the role that I play generally in life, but also for my job, I then decided that I'm going to focus on solving for these social problems. And I'm sure as you listen to this, you're also thinking, we see it around us every day. But who is she and how did she get there? So what did I study? We all do high school and we pass, hopefully. I did. I took school very seriously. And from there I went to university. And for my bachelor's, I did a social science degree. So you will see in this picture that the main one speaks to the needs of society. That black picture that you see there. It says, out of the needs of society, what do I need to solve for and how do I get there? The study that I took, it's a degree that is offered in every university. Whichever university you can name, I'll tell you that that degree is provided there, and it's within the humanities faculty or sector. It's a social science degree, but what is social science? Social science, you will see there, speaks to law, sociology, industrial psychology, geography, and most important these days is the ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. All companies need to abide by that. Government needs to support that. So that's what I studied. And people too. Social transformations. Why do people move from one province to another, from one country to another? What is migration? How do you decide on housing? Who decides on the housing? How do you decide on the education system? Why do you put a school there and not a school there? Why is it a high school and not a primary school? All those questions, which are clear life questions, are answered in the degree that I took. And you can see it was already starting to give me the ability to problem solve, to look at critical thinking, but also build me as an individual to be able to tackle and deal with the social challenges that we see around us. If you look on my slide, what type of work would you then do? Most leaders today who are either in government or are in the NGO sector, or even in corporate like myself, or in private sector, have studied some sort of humanities degree, or humanities subject, or social science, because it gives you the ability to understand in a multidisciplinary fashion how to solve for the world's challenges and problems. But even the most basic as well, social work, which is not basic but so important. You can also do a profession in social work. You can be a teacher. You can be a public servant, a public service, which is my line of work. I'm a public servant. So basically, in that slide, you'll see that I say social sciences focuses on human society and the human condition in general. Very simple. And I get paid to think of these things, support these things, and change and make a difference. And I think if more people actually looked at my line of work and that profession and looked to solve for problems around them, the world would be a better place. So who can you work for? I did include there part of my journey. So I'll speak to this slide. I've put a lot of companies there. But what I show there is how broad your options are once you have this degree or once you have this qualification. I'm sure some of you are asking, is it only a degree? No. You can have any course that is within that field. You can have a diploma within that field, any higher certificate within that field, as long as it looks at human condition, societal issues, and you seek to challenge and tackle them. That qualification is what you need. But most importantly, problem solving, critical skills thinking, and understanding society is what will get you there. So if you look at that slide, it's some companies that I've worked for. So my journey, when I finished my master's degree, so I did a first degree in social science. And then from there, I felt it wasn't enough. I needed to do an honors degree. And at honors, I did a degree that was called Social Transformations and Development. And then I finally did a master's, which looked at development studies, but it looked at the international dynamics of it as local. And from there, when I started my career, I only wanted to work for government. I applied for every government job that was in line with what I aspired to be. And funny, all my friends were getting into CSI and corporate and all of that, and I just went into government. I must say I was privileged to work in government because it gave me a very healthy dose of how things don't work as you plan and how they are charged with such a great responsibility. Government is responsible for the citizens of their country. And I was part of the team, as big as it is in government, that's responsible for citizens in our country, and that's what you get to do. So I worked in government. You will see the emblem there. the South African emblem. And then from there, I left. And I decided that I was actually going to get into the NGO sector. What is the NGO sector? That is the non-governmental organizations. So there are civil society organizations that are non-governmental, but are also charged with looking at how to deal with the social problems and issues that we face in our communities. But I decided not to just work in an NGO, but to start an NGO. So one of the logos you see there of the hands is the NGO I started. It's called Hand in Hand Southern Africa. And I wanted to make sure that I make a meaningful impact, but actually work at the bottom, at the grassroots level, to understand how I can help women and youth to start, run, and grow their small businesses. It was really around economic development and livelihoods. I spent 6-7 years working on that, starting that NGO, establishing it and letting it grow. By the time I left, I had supported over 100,000 women who I looked at, and I remembered my mom. I go back to my mission and my purpose and passion in life. And I could see that I was making a difference. And you will see there that there is a picture there that of an annual report, Hand in Hand Southern Africa. Those are the women I worked with for 7 years. And we supported, whether in agriculture, spaza shops. But my ability to do that was really driven by the fact that I had studied it and I was now applying it. And I was looking at social problems and seeking to solve them. After I had gone into the NGO sector, I decided to leave my company. I left it in safe hands. It is still existing today and it's doing very well. But what inspired me to leave was actually the fact that in most great companies, you don't know who started that company. What's important is you know its mission. So that's why I moved from Hand in Hand. I had outgrown it. But I wanted to work in private sector and corporate, doing the exact same thing. However, using a different sector. So I went into private sector, Apsa. So I currently work at the Apsa group. And in Apsa, I do the same thing, but in that same thing, it's just using a different system to create the same impact. So within a corporate like that, or Apsa Bank as you would know it, so why is a bank doing these things? Or where does someone like that sit? Most often people think that if you work in a bank, all you do is either a bank teller or supporting money and etc. But corporates are so big and they're also seen as citizens in that country. So they have a responsibility to support the communities where they operate. And that is the role that I do. They say companies like Apsa, like Capitec, ShopRite, PEP, all have a responsibility to make sure that they invest and support the communities around them. So there are people in those companies. Every company, I promise you, has got someone like me working in a role like mine where we support the social responsibility and make investments in young people, in agriculture, or in enterprise development. We make an impact. So I am currently in a corporate, but there are other organizations that are making a much broader impact beyond just at a company level. So I spoke about government, and I spoke about the NGO sector, and now I'm talking about corporate. They all have people and roles like mine that make that kind of meaningful impact and difference. And then there are other organizations that are broader, foundations and global development organizations like the United Nations, like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Bank. They are charged with looking at continents, the whole of Africa, globally. What are we doing to develop and support those who are in impoverished positions? So from a spectrum, you can see where you could potentially work and what you could do. So what do I do at Apsa? Of course, I have a title. I am the group head of Citizenship and Community Investments. So you can hear from the title that it's similar to what I did in government. It's similar to what I did in the NGO sector, and I'm doing it here again. So I manage the investments that the bank does in our communities. And through that, I have been able to, through the strategies and the work that I do, we have supported, ABSA has supported over 4,500 young people with scholarships in universities across South Africa. We've even trained over 400,000 young people in one of the programs I'll introduce you to, and hopefully it can serve you as well, called Ready to Work. But a big part of my job is also to communicate. I'm one of the spokespersons for the bank. So you will see me in most platforms speaking about this type of work that the bank does and the impact that we're making, and putting thought leadership, futuristic thinking of how a corporate like ours needs to be making a difference in the communities. So you will see a key initiative that we have supported is Ready to Work. Ready to Work, I think, is apt for this conversation because it really seeks to support young people in their decisions around where to work, how to get the career they want, whether to be entrepreneurs, which is a very important one, or whether to look for a job, so self-employment or employment. When we designed this program, it's one of my proud moments of working in Apsa. We looked at how we could capacitate young people between the ages of 18 to 35, even 16 to 35, with work skills, people skills, money skills, and entrepreneurship. And I made sure that it did not carry the Apsa brand. It stood on its own as Ready to Work so that anyone and everyone could use it. And we worked with NGOs across South Africa and the continent because Apsa works in 10 countries. And in those countries with NGOs adopting the training program and giving it to young people, training young people. And through that, we're able to reach 400,000 young people. I would encourage you to go and Google it and download it and go through the training. It's really, really good. So what are the key takeaways in terms of what I do? What you can then do? You can see that I speak in quite a few platforms. Those are just an example of some of the engagements that I do, speaking on behalf of the bank. And it's quite important because what I do gives the bank the social license to operate. They have their bank license, but they have the social license to operate. You saw in July, the civil unrest and all the looting that was happening. It's a cause for concern. But people like me in the bank are the ones who respond to say, let's support those who are affected. Let's look at people who are not able to get their businesses up and running again. How do we give them grants? How do we make donations to NGOs who can get to the schools or the young people or old people who are not able to support themselves? And quite recently with COVID, I have led the support from a humanitarian perspective, social perspective, of how banks can get involved, how our bank gets involved, what donations to make across the continent. So I think you get a good flavor of what I do for a living, what my job is. And I like to say that I wish I would have worked a day in my life, for I have not. I enjoy what I do. I have said some key takeaways. Know your why. And I think that's a starting point. Why do I want to do what I'm doing, or why and how can I make a difference? What will allow me to get there? Dream big. I kid you not, when I started this journey, it's always been a passion point of mine and what I want to achieve in life. But what I was able to do, which I will say today, the best dreams are done awake. I walked my dream awake. I lived it every day. I breathe it every day. I keep studying. I'm still in school. I've started school again because learning is part of the journey. I don't profess to know it all. I can only share my journey and my experience. And I think we are all born to make an impact. When God puts us on this earth, He's charging us with a reason for existence. Try and find it and follow it. It may look small, even starting a small business, but once you have the idea, go for it. and make the difference in your life and those around you. Work hard, study hard, and yes, there's downtime, play hard. But life is a balance. I am privileged to be sitting here today and speaking to you. I am a public servant. I am a social impact investment specialist. I have all these weird, funny titles, but all I do is really make a difference, and I'll continue to strive to. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
For more informative videos, visit www.empoweryouth.co.za.